So hi Devi, how are you?
Yeah, doing good. And you?
I'm good. Currently, still in Switzerland or are you in India?
No, I'm currently in Zurich, Switzerland. Yeah.
Okay, so have the labs and everything reopened over there? Are things back to
Yeah, here it's like everything has been normal. So, but not exactly, but still we are going to lab and now it's recovering. Yeah.
great, great. So can you give a brief introduction about yourself to the viewers?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I'm from Kerala and I did my 5 years BSMS at Aizer Bhopal
Okay.
and in the Department of Chemistry. And in 2018 September, I joined here in the Department of Chemistry at University of Zurich for a PhD.
Okay, okay, that's great. So it's been 2 years there in Zurich, right?
Yeah, I'm just completing my second year, and in this September, I'll be starting my third year.
Okay, great. So we don't generally come across a lot of PhD students who go to Switzerland from India. So a lot of our viewers want to know that how you like got through. So
Yep, sure.
from the scratch, I would say that first of all, when did you like students don't come to know that whether they really want to do a PhD or not. So how did you find out that yes, research is something that you would want to do in future?
So initially, when I started at Aizer Bhopal, so I don't have this bigger idea of doing a PhD or pursuing a research career.
Yeah.
But like over the years, when you get through certain internship experiences and like the summer projects and all, so you get interested in certain fields of science, right? And the ideal decision came when I completed my master thesis. So still I had like even from the fourth year I had some confusions. Shall I go through to a research career or is it? So when I completed my at the end of my master thesis, okay, I understood. Um,
Okay. Right. So, like, is it so you started applying after the end of your thesis, or you had started applying beforehand only for positions abroad?
uh, so so initially I was not much interested to pursue a PhD position in US. So
Okay.
in US, if you're applying to US, you have to start, I think, around October or August or September or something the previous year because it's a long procedure.
Right.
So, I was like, if I'm doing a PhD, I would prefer Europe. So then I started around January or February or something.
Okay.
So
So, like,
like 6 months
after your
before the completion of thesis.
right. So basically, you might have submitted one report, and then you had some data in hand, and then you were progressing for the
Yeah,
second.
sure, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
at when you're applying in the first semester, you don't have much informations to show like your skill set or something. So it's better
Right.
that.
Right. Right. So when you started off in January and February, so like how did you go about selecting first of all positions where you would want to apply or universities which you would want to apply?
So it's like there are two, three major things. First is the area you want to work on, like
Right.
which field you want to work on, and also which universities do you consider. So basically, depending upon that, you can sort it out. And also, there are like several websites where you can actually give your interest, your which countries do you want to prefer, and they will actually filter it out. Like
Okay. They'll
they
give
will
you an
show the
option.
positions in
Like,
that.
they'll give you
Yep.
options where there are open positions.
Yeah, if there are open positions, they will advertise it there. Yeah.
Okay, great. So could you like maybe later on I'll put the link to these websites if you have them in the description box so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
it.
sure, sure. Yeah.
Okay, great, great. Right. So you selected, so you went to these websites, you got to know about the positions based on your research interest. And then how did it follow up?
So basically, if I start telling about applying in Switzerland, you have two or three ways. So one is like basically you directly contact the professor and you inquire about whether there is an open position or in the near future whether there's going to be a position.
Right.
So that's one thing. Or you can actually directly apply to the graduate school because all the universities, many of the universities in Switzerland have their own graduate school programs. So that's also an option. But
Okay.
there it's like it's like there is a long screening process. So when the committee finally decides, like if they find like okay this applicant is worth for getting forwarded, so they will forward this to the department, and there also you have to get an acceptance from one of the professor, minimum one professor. So the
Right.
professor has to support your application. Okay, I may have a position and I may offer this position. So then finally it goes to the second stage or third stage interview and it continues.
Okay. So the current position that you are in, so how did you basically go about this, like getting into University of Zurich? So which procedure did you?
So in my case, it was an open position in my group.
Okay.
So it was actually advertised in the university website of Department of Chemistry.
Okay, not by the individual professor, but by the university.
Yeah, so by the university, it was advertised as an open position.
Okay.
So there they will describe about the project, the requirements which they are searching for, like certain skills and all. And so they will provide a link. So if you find you are suitable for that position, you can apply through the link. Just
Okay.
submit the documents which they mention and it's done. So
Right.
after that, I think after 1 month, I got the interview call.
After 1 month, okay. So that interview was for telephonic or like on Skype, virtual
No,
interview?
because I had two interviews. So first one was, both of them were via Skype.
Okay.
First one was like a more general, like introduction and discussion to the group, and that's it. The second one was where I have to present my research experience, like whatever, like my summer internship experience, my master thesis, and some ideas about the project which was actually advertised.
Okay.
And
So
there were some question answer sessions, and that was like the second interview was like more complex in the sense it was like more project oriented.
more technical, basically.
Yeah.
All right. So, but there were no questions that were asked from which tested your basics understanding of chemistry, right? It was more related to research, or it was related to a general understanding of things, right? It was not related to basic.
In the second interview, like it was like more about my research background. Like it was like actually questions regarding the research experience or research skills which I mentioned, and the projects, and also some basic questions about the project they advertised. Like actually, I work on water oxidation, so there are some basic stuff you should know when you tell about water oxidation. So
Yeah, like
basic
basic stuff related to the project, basically.
yeah.
Okay, right. But not in general, they were not testing your chemistry or something, right?
Not much. There were two or three questions, but majority of them were like based on the project and the
Research,
research. Yeah.
basically. Okay, so after both these interviews, finally they gave you a call, is it? Or
Yeah.
did you have to go?
So there is also a provision for a third interview where they invite you to come to Zurich,
Okay.
and like you just mingle up with the group members, and it's like a formal interview or something.
Okay.
But actually, I got a call for the third interview also, but I couldn't join because at that time I was having my convocation at ISER Bhopal.
Right.
So I mentioned this, or I can come later, but they told, okay, then it's fine. Then they forwarded me the
So, but
profile.
it's just a formality thing, right? It's more or less you're selected. You're just going there just to have you can say a interaction with your.
Yeah, but there are two kinds. One is like it's like finally you are selected and you just have an short interaction with the group and the place and all. But there are also universities which like I mentioned the second interview, right?
Yeah.
For that purpose, they invite you to the
Okay.
university so that you get the presentation in front of the group and you have the discussions and all.
So that depends from institution to institution. Some institutions might call
Yeah,
you.
institution and the department, because the department also has some regulations, like so
Okay.
it depends.
Right. So, being there, Devi, you might have also interacted with a lot of other fellows who would have come from India or from some other countries.
Yeah, sure.
So, in your experience and in your discussion with your peers, what are the most important things that you feel are important? Like, what are the most important aspects of application, particularly if I say oriented towards Switzerland, and how does it differ from other European countries? Because I have taken a lot of other interviews, especially from PhD students from Germany. So, like what I have come across is in Germany, your postgrad your marks basically do matter a lot, along with the research experience. So what do you feel? What is more applicable to Switzerland? Is it the same as other European countries, or is there any key difference that you find in the application process?
So basically, it's like GPA matters, but I'm not telling that you should have a very high GPA or something, but a decent GPA like around above 7.5 or 8 would make it.
Basically above
But
70.
but if you are in the graduate school program, the screening is somewhat competitive. So there are provisions. There may be conditions that if you have several candidates, so they can also increase the GPA cutoff, so that they can screen it out. It depends,
Right.
but generally telling, like if you are applying for an open position, there it matters. GPA matters, but not much. But what matters more is like your past research experience and how much your research skill and your experience matches the advertised position.
Okay, right.
So how close is your experience in that particular field?
Okay, got it.
But I have also seen people who are really interested in a particular field, but they don't have much experience, but still they got the position.
Okay.
But that comes from the discussion in the interview and with the professor. So if he or she finds, okay, this candidate is interested in expanding his research aspects, so that also happens, but not every time. But I have seen some cases like that.
Okay, but majorly you're saying
More or
that
less, it's like how much the research experience matches with the advertised profile position. Yeah.
all right, okay. So basically, one thing is there that, and for the research profile to match with the with the research that is being conducted. So for that, obviously, the first prerequisite is that you need to have some research experience, and
Yeah, sure.
and unfortunately, this is also a lot of there were a lot of questions that, like for example, in I would say privileged institutes like IITs and IISers, there is still you still get a lot of exposure to research. But if I talk about some central universities and state universities, a lot of institutes in India do not have this whole idea of getting research exposure. So how do those students approach applying for PhD in these countries? Or do you recommend they do summer internships during their masters and bachelors to get some experience?
Yeah, actually, there can be 2 or 3 ways. Like you do the final project in some other institute, like the final master thesis or the 6-month thesis, depending upon the university. So you can do it in some other institute, like a national institute or something, so that you can gain at least 6 months of experience. That's one thing. Or obviously you can go for summer internship, so that matters a lot. Like you can get experience in different fields actually, because generally in summer internship, it's not that you continuously perform research in a specific field for 2 or 3 years. Sometimes people changes the field also, so you can get exposure to different fields. Or you can get general ideas about different fields. That's also a fact. Or like after masters, you can have a project position or 6 months or something in certain labs, so that you get a real exposure,
Right.
that you can apply and enhance your CV. That's also a provision.
Okay. So I would say then okay. So this is one thing, and so there is. So how would you say it is different? Like, because I have generally heard that Switzerland is a little tougher to crack as compared to other European countries. So what I want to know is that, since you mentioned that GPA is like plays a significant role along with the what do you call the research experience. So so this factor is common for other country or other European countries also. So is there any other difference apart from these two things which you feel is more important when you're applying to Switzerland, or these are the two key factors?
I don't feel like there are much change, but these two are very important. Like
Okay, right.
yeah.
So
Especially
basically,
the research skill and the research experience matters much.
okay, right. So and the important thing is that your research experience should be closer to the applied position, basically.
Yeah, the advertised position. It's not that it should exactly match, but at least they will actually mention some skills or some knowledge that you should be. So at least you should have some of them, in the sense. Like everybody cannot have like everything done, right? So
Yeah.
at least a minimum of them.
I agree, right. So is there any like there is a stereotype among students that only IITians and IISers, like students from IISers end up end up for a PhD. So in your interaction or in your couple of years, have you seen students outside IITs and IISers also doing a PhD over there?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
That's like, as I mentioned, like either they have some sort of research experience as summer internship or something, or they have been doing a 6-month project extra project position or something.
Right.
But there are also students who directly acquired it. It's not actually that's a perspective. Like, okay, if you're in IIT or IISER, you'll go for PhD, but it doesn't mean that people from or the students from other universities aren't capable of that. So it's not. It's only a perception.
It's a false perception, basically, you would say.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so these were
But
some.
it's better if you have some research experience and skills to exhibit in your CV, so that it matters.
Okay, right. And one more thing that students often ask me is this: that how, like, for example, when you were in IISER Bhopal, so how did you think that okay, I would be interested in pursuing research in this field? Or was it a pick and like you picked it up and then you liked it and then you started pursuing it? Is it something like that, or how did you basically pick up the field you are currently in?
So actually, I did my first summer internship when I was in second year
Okay.
at IIST Trivandrum. So there I worked on materials. So I was like a starting. It was a starting time, so I was not much experienced. It was really beginning.
Right.
So there, I was like, when you are being introduced to a field, you'll only carry out a minor project or something. Like it's not like you think you do big things.
Yeah.
So basically, it was some material synthesis and all. So thereby, so there it was like for me more than a practical work. It was like an initial training. So where you come to know about different methods and techniques that is being used in chemistry as a wide field. So there, I found materials interesting than molecules or whatever. So it was like inorganic materials, nanomaterials.
Okay.
So that was a short project, and after that, next year, I thought, okay, I'll pursue my research field experience in materials, and I joined IISc for the next internship. So there it was at the solid state and structural chemistry unit. So that actually triggered my interest in solid state chemistry.
Okay.
At that time, I found it very interesting in the sense, actually, the lab which I worked with, they worked on developing new solid state like doped materials for different applications.
Okay.
So depending upon the changes and structural chemistry changes, it matters a lot. So that I found it interesting. So I decided at that time, okay, if sometime I'm pursuing a research career or going for a PhD, I'll stick to more in solid state and materials.
Okay.
Then I carry forward the project in the consecutive next year also. And so I decided to stay in solid state and materials and X-ray science. That's it.
So your thesis was also based on a similar topic?
Yeah. So in IISER Bhopal, I worked with Professor Deepak Chopra. So it's more or less solid state and crystallography lab there.
Okay. Right.
So my thesis was based on organic core crystallography, like synthesis of co-crystals and the structural elucidation, etc.
Okay. Right.
So that actually mattered a lot for me when I was applying to this position in here, PhD. So in the skill set which they mentioned, they wanted somebody to be somebody who is experienced in crystallography.
Okay.
So that was a major plus point for me.
Right. So, Devi, is there like when you're applying, the first thing I think it this way. Just correct me if I'm wrong. That when you're applying initially, maybe your application, your GPA, and your your research experience, your CV basically matters. But once you're done with that aspect, the next thing is that how you perform in the interview. Then it's totally dependent on how you're performing in the interview.
Yeah, that's a big fact. Yeah, sure.
So initially the shortlisting is where maybe these things matter, but once you're shortlisted, then it is more about how you perform in the interview.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So in that respect, when you're applying to a particular position, like how would you say honestly that how much does the recommendation play a role?
Yeah, it matters a lot. So there actually, I don't know what exactly the content should be because I have never seen my recommendation letter from my professors.
Yeah.
But it's actually what I heard from one of my professor. It's like they have to mention how this student suits to the position, and is he capable of working with a group and managing the group and carrying it forward. So that matters a lot.
But it doesn't matter from whom the recommendation is coming from.
Not much, but if the professor who is giving the recommendation is a pioneer in the field, then it matters, obviously.
Yes.
But it's not a big fact.
But like I said, that everything over here will help you getting shortlisted for the interview, but then it is up to you how you perform in the interview. Then I don't think these facts will matter a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And there's a common question regarding this statement of purpose and how to design a CV. So can you like shed some light upon these factors?
Yeah, actually, these two factors are very important. And CV in CV, actually, you exhibit what skill sets and what experience you have gained. Like, so what is your background actually?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to mention it accurately, in the sense, not so much extra so that it becomes pile up as a. So it depends. And in SOP, it matters a lot. And there you are describing yourself, like how you were in, like how you get into this particular science and how you got interested, or what is your research experience, and how or why do you think you suit for this position, and what would be your future perspectives on if you once you get hired. So you have to include this stuff there.
Okay. Right. So
Basically, if I mention about my SOP, it's like, first you give an introduction about yourself, like, okay, you are so and so, and you work with you are currently working this developer. Then mention like, what is your research experience, like which field you are interested, and what have you acquired through the past years. Then why you are interested in this project, and also like why you find yourself suited for this position. Then why this, or you can also add some like, why do you choose the particular department or university or group. That also matters, like 2 or 3 lines.
okay.
Then your future perspectives on your research career. That's it.
Okay, great. So I think Devi, one question that would be now apt to ask you is, since you have some experience in Switzerland, excuse me. So what are the key differences that you find in the research culture in India and outside? Because you have worked in one of like very prestigious universities and institutes in India as well, like IISc and ISERS. So like if you compare the research culture in India and particularly where you are currently settled, so what are some of the key differences? Why do you think they are? I would say that in a lot of aspects they are ahead of us when you compare in terms of research. So like if you could shed some light upon that as to why is it so?
So basically, the changes which I found, majority was like, they have a particular working schedule, working time. So it's like a sort of 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 or something. For them, the weekends are like off. Right. So they used to stick to that particular time span, and they complete the work, much of the work within that time. So that is one thing. Then, as far as I'm concerned, in our research group, or majority of the research group in our department, it's like you are given more independency on your particular project. So you are free to expand it according to your perspective. So first they advertise a position. So it's not that you have to really stick to that particular project, because sometimes what happens, it's research, right? So sometimes some things doesn't work out. So you should have that particular trick or skill so that you can expand it properly. That independence is being there for you.
Okay, right.
So then I think in terms of facilities, it's okay, but more or less, because when I compare IISER Bhopal, in like, it's okay, like more or less we have.
But I'm sure that in IISER Bhopal you would have seen students, especially PhD students, work from 9 to 9 or sometimes even beyond that.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. The time slot is actually different, really different.
Even on weekends, they end up working on Saturdays, sometimes on Sundays as well. So then why is the output greater in terms of research over here as compared to, because you're working less in terms of the time?
Yeah, that's a fact. But sometimes maybe, like, they have like major facilities in the sense they have everything here. So not claiming that we are the best, but when you compare with European universities, most of them have like all the instruments or anything that you need. So based on the research infrastructure, it's like more or less very high output. Like that may be a fact.
What
And
about
also like
what about the mindset? Is the mindset similar if you say of researchers in India and researchers over here? Because I feel that if the output is if there's a drastic difference in the output, there has to be something with the mindset of the researchers in both the countries. So do you feel that there's a difference in the mindset of how they approach research in India and how they approach research in Switzerland?
so basically they are more focused to like if you are pursuing a particular project, so and your aim is with a target for a particular property or something, for say example, so they focus more on that particular thing. So not by like it's like you don't change your field unless once you find okay, is it actually worth of finding that, or is it something which is not possible. So I feel they're more focused in that sense. Then it's like the infrastructure, I think so. Yeah.
Infrastructure. Okay, right. And is there any is there a culture for like are publications given a lot of weightage over there, or is it okay? Like in India,
It's
actually,
not
publications are
much
given a lot
as
of.
we give in India because okay, you need publications, but it's like so. You mean publications during the PhD or when you are applying for a position?
No, I'm in general. I'm asking. Like in India, there is a huge weightage given to publications in general. Like publications
Okay,
matter a
so
lot. So how
and
how is it?
also the thing is like it's not much weighted, but it's good to have publications. That's it. And also they don't consider in which journal you publish, what is the impact factor. They don't consider that. It's like you do some science and you just deliver or communicate it to the society. That's it for them.
It doesn't matter whether it's in a 10 impact, 5 impact, or a 2
No,
impact.
that doesn't matter at all. You can ask anybody. That doesn't matter at all. So for them, when you have, so you can understand if you have a published, so say like a publication came from a group. So for them, that's a big fact. Like at least your science got communicated. It's not like where it. Nobody will ask you like in which journal did you publish? What is the impact factor? Nobody will ask you such a question. So getting a publication is a great thing. That's it.
Okay.
Like it's like you're communicating your science. That's it.
Right. So there's no such pressure of communicating it in high impact journals or.
Yeah, that's a, that may be also a fact.
Okay. Right. Okay. So, Devi, I have a few questions from the viewers. So I'll just put out those questions and just feel free to answer the way like. So this is one question that I've already answered, but since it is very popular, I'll ask it again. So
Yeah.
Gauri is asking this question that all of the
Sorry.
previous PhD fellow did the research work in their masters, but what if someone hasn't done research in masters? How do they approach PhD?
It's basically you try that somehow you achieve a short experience or something in the research field, like a 6 months or 4 months or 5 months project or some project position or something. Or you can like, as I said, you can do your master thesis in such a research oriented institute. So that's also an option. Yeah.
So either a project fellow or you do your last 6 months in a research oriented institute or you do summer
Yep.
internships in between.
That's also yeah, summer internship also.
Okay. So okay. So next question is by Himanshu, and he's asking, apart from research experience, how important is GPA for getting an admit from prestigious universities like say ETH Zurich? He so he's saying he's not a 9 pointer. So would it be difficult for him? And yeah, that's about it.
So as I said, GPA matters. It's not that it doesn't matter, because during the screening process, that is also a fact which people consider. So, and also it depends on how competitive the position is.
Right.
So if you consider, so ETH, obviously it's a high ranked institute. So the process is going to be complex. So it's not much easier. So it depends. And also it depends under which channel you are applying. Like, is it through the official graduate school. So there it's really somewhat competitive because it's a long process, and actually numerous applications comes there rather
Right.
than being applying through a open position.
Okay, right.
That's it.
So basically, you're saying that open positions are less competitive as compared to graduate schools. So
I'm not telling like that, but in open positions, the fact that they consider more is like your research skills and how much you suit for the position. But
right,
through when you're applying through the official program or graduate school, they exactly actually like they screen it in such a way that okay, it should also match with the conditions of the institute or particular department or something.
right.
So that's it.
So basically, excuse me. So basically, if you don't have an exceptionally high GPA, maybe you can, and if you have a good research experience, maybe you can try from open positions. You'll have a better shot at
Yeah.
getting shortlisted. Okay.
Yep.
And the next question is, it's a very general question from Himanshu itself, that how is this pandemic going to whether it's going to diminish their chances or how it is going to impact their chances of getting a PhD.
No, in Switzerland, I think it doesn't affect. Would not be that much affected because I know personally 2-3 guys who had like they have received an offer letter,
Okay.
but due to the travel restrictions, they are not yet like able to come to Switzerland. But it depends because they themselves and the professors also know that, so they also already notified the students that it's not yet like they have been offered a position, that's for sure, but they're not sure when he should be or she should be able to arrive in Switzerland
So
because
you feel that in Switzerland, like it should not impact their chances severely when it comes to Switzerland at least.
yeah, I think so. Because
Okay.
as far as I know till now, it's not much affected.
And like I was saying, there's a big myth among students. So one of them has actually asked me, so what is the process for a non-IITian? So it is the same process. It doesn't matter whether you're IITian or a non-IITian. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just that if you have the, I think, educate research experience, I think you still
and
have a,
also your interest in the particular field also matters.
yeah, right, right.
That's
So
for sure. Yeah.
there's nothing to do with the IITian or a non-IITian over here. It's just a general
No.
process which everyone has to follow. Yeah. So the next question is, while starting masters, how do you realize your research interest and worthy ideas to research upon? Generally, students have no idea about research at the time they complete graduation. So this is very similar to the question that I had asked you, how you got the basically the interest in a particular field. So I think you would suggest doing internships, research internships, so as to get exposure to different fields and then choosing
Yeah,
which one is
true.
the best for you.
Yep.
That is the only possibility.
Yep.
Okay. The next question is by Shubham. How can we get internship there? So is there any possibility of getting an internship?
In Switzerland, for some, so there are 2-3 programs, but they are very specific to certain departments.
Okay.
Like for I think for computer science, there is a general program,
Okay.
and for biology also, I think there was a program. I'm not sure whether it's being pursued now. But generally speaking, getting summer internship or a long-term summer project, it's not that easy in Switzerland.
Okay.
One thing is like the expense. So basically, if your professor gives you some sort of funding, like a sort of like stipend or something, then it's okay, still okay.
Right.
But otherwise, it's because Switzerland is one of the expensive countries, like in Europe itself. So that matters to some extent.
Okay.
So that's not so easy. And
Right.
even if you are able to get a position, like in say you got a position in any of the university or something, even if you get or if the professor is ready to take you, but there are some visa restrictions or visa conditions that you have to satisfy, and only you will be allowed to enter Switzerland.
Okay.
That's also a fact.
Right. And the next thing is how is there any problem related to accommodation over there? Like, did you
No.
find accommodation easily? What about job opportunity? So, there's actually an interesting question that in Switzerland specifically, like, what do most of the PhDs do after completing like their thesis? Like, do they end up in a private sector, or what are the avenues or domains that they enter into?
Yeah, like many of them go for like if you're from chemistry or biochemistry, background, I have seen many people going to the pharma area, like because Switzerland has many pharmaceutical R&D companies and all.
Okay.
So that's one. Then if you are like more or less experienced in materials in the sense energy, like battery materials or something, you have separate electro or electronical companies. I have seen many people getting into, and also people are like pursuing higher careers, like going for postdoc, and that's there. But job opportunities, I have seen many of them getting into jobs. It's usual. Yeah.
So is a like, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but is there is like, can you get a work visa right after your PhD?
No, actually, in Switzerland, the PhD visa is a work permit.
Okay, right, right.
So because PhD from the level of PhD, it's considered as an employment.
Okay, right.
So it's not a student visa actually.
Oh, that's something very insightful. Okay.
Yeah, because once you are a PhD student, you have the dual status. You are also a student in the department, but you are also employed by the university.
Okay, right. So
Yeah.
like how long have you got the visa for? Like, is it
No, but the thing is, you have to renew it every year, year
okay,
by year. So
right?
because non-Europeans are not given for the entire period, you have to renew it every year.
So
That's
then,
how it works.
like, have like, do you know of any seniors of yours who pursued PhD over there and now are working in Switzerland?
Yeah.
Okay, so they got the visa basically. So there is a possibility, right after your PhD you can get a visa, like you can renew your visa and start working over there as well.
Yeah, they have acquired it. But for them, it was more easy because they were like purely from biochemistry or pharmaceutical background.
Okay,
And
right,
also the language also matters because in Switzerland we have 3 official languages. So depending upon the region or the area which you apply for the job, it's better you have that particular language, either French, German, or Italian. So that matters.
right. So these are the
So Zurich comes in the German language speaking area. So
okay, right, right, right.
that's a big asset actually, if you're knowing the language.
Okay, so for a work opportunity as well, basically.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, right. That's something very insightful. So one question is asked by Priyamvada. She is asking, is there any age limit for PhD program in foreign countries?
I don't know about other countries, but in Switzerland, I think there is no, because I have seen here it's generally speaking, people like in India, if you see like we complete bachelor's, then master's, and like rapidly we go for a PhD within 1 or 2 years after master's. So here you'll see that people doing bachelor's or master's in different age groups. Like you'll see many people,
Okay,
even PhD after a long time, like they actually do the bachelor's and masters, then they work for some time. Then they actually pursue a PhD or a higher degree. It's the usual way that they did.
okay, okay. And one common question, I think this is I'll take as the last question. That
Mhm.
one common question is that like how much are you able to save being in Switzerland? Like in terms of, like, if you are living a normal, let's say, day to day lifestyle. I understand that where you're living also matters. Like if it's a urbanized place or or comparatively a rural place, the living expenses will change or
Mhm.
vary. But on an average, how much are you able to save
So
from
the
your
thing
rent?
is, if you consider like Switzerland, the fellowship of Switzerland is much relatively higher than other European countries.
Okay,
This is because of the fact that Switzerland as a whole is a very expensive country.
okay,
Especially Zurich and Geneva are really expensive.
okay,
So also taking into account the university, there is a basic pay scale which every PhD student should get. Depending upon your university and where your university is, like in which, like as we have districts over there, so we have cantons here. So depending upon which canton your university is, there is a special addition for that. So it actually takes the living expense there, and obviously you have to pay tax and all because you are not under a student visa, you are under a work permit, so you
right,
have to pay the mandatory taxes. And also there are other like social security contributions that they are compulsory, and like compulsory insurance, these all comes from the salary.
right.
So within that, or taking that to account, if you have an average life, and also the rent matters, the accommodation rent, depending upon the region where it is, it changes a lot,
Yeah.
really a lot.
Yeah.
So within that, I'm not telling that but still you will have decent savings. That's for sure.
Okay, but like, can you give a rough range if I might ask?
So, and it would not be like throughout, like what is that? It would not be a constant amount.
Yeah, yeah.
It varies according to your expense, and but still speaking, you can actually say like between 700 to 900 Swiss francs or something.
Okay, so that would be roughly around 60,000 to 70,000 rupees.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And also it depends how is your lifestyle. That matters.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you have a lavish lifestyle, then you might end up with nothing, and so that.
Yeah, because especially Zurich is really expensive. The sense because I have seen this, like some of my juniors are there, like in Germany, and also when they come to me, like we used to have a meetup, so they used to tell this every time. It's really expensive here because Germany is not that much expensive country.
Okay.
When you compare everything, Switzerland is very expensive.
Right. So these are all the technical aspects. What about the fun aspects? How is Switzerland in terms of having fun, Alps and everything? And
yeah, it's true. It's a beautiful country. Like you have different places. Wherever you go, you find it like a paradise. So you have so many places to roam, and I like traveling. So I used to travel a lot, but now because of these restrictions, we can go like. Okay. And we have been restricted for all the travel. Yeah.
There's a lot of cycling culture in general in Europe, right? So over here.
Cycling and skiing, these are two, like they're mandatory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you, Devi. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And in case, if you don't mind, there might be some students who might have some further queries. So would it be okay if I give your email ID down in the description box?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, sure.
Okay, sure. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Hey guys, so I'm a verified educator on Unacademy, and along with that I'm also available on the Unacademy Plus platform, where I'm taking live classes along with other educators. So in case you're interested in attending the live classes, you can subscribe to the Unacademy Plus platform using my referral code, that is SETHI, and that will give you 10% discount. Alright, and in case you're not interested in attending the live classes, you can watch the free courses that are available on the Unacademy. For that, all you need to do is go to the Unacademy website or download the Unacademy Learning app and search my name over there, that is ACT. Once you do that, you will get the access to all the free courses that are available on the Unacademy platform. Alright.